Okay.
Well, welcome to the November 2023 Acquisitions Special Interest Group meeting. We've got a nice group of people here, and do we have some acquisitions topics to discuss?
If no one else has one right out the bat, I have a bug that looks like it's going to be deployed. I'd have to read through it again, but having to do with what happens when you try and modify an order line on an order, and currently that dumps it off of the invoice. This is bug 34469 in Bugzilla.
So this is on standing orders, it says then.
Yeah, it says standing orders, but we had asked Bywater about that. And the reply that is that the patch fix works on the issue that we see with non-standing orders as well. Where this came from one our side is somebody was noticed that a fund needed to be corrected on an line item, so they went in to modify it, and then after they saved it, that line item was no longer associated with the invoice.
Oh, okay.
So this fix should address that. I didn't know if anyone else had encountered that in working with receiving invoices, but interesting bug to read through if you have time. If anyone has time, it's 34469.
And Jason put a link to it up there so people can check it out. I don't know if we've encountered that or not. It might have happened and we might maybe not have known that it happened.
So it looks like when you're manually receiving the invoice, correct, Kristi?
Correct. This is not an EDI thing. This was during manual receipt.
Because the new, I'm trying to think, I've done that before, like for several years. So I didn't notice that it was like no longer attached to the invoice when you modified the fund. But any of you in acquisitions, wasn't a new feature that you could actually go in the invoice and modify the fund, and then that would attach to the cart as well? I'm looking at it backwards, Kristi. Like I understand doing it from the cart, because that would be natural when you're receiving, but I thought a new feature of Koha on this last upgrade was you could go into the invoice and change the fund, and then it would change it at the cart level as well. Can anyone confirm that, or?
I'm not able to confirm that right now.
It looks like this one, it's pushed to at least 22/11/09. So I think we're like on 10. So I guess this is already in our particular update. So that's good.
Yeah.
Anyone else having problems, issues, or made discoveries of acquisitions things. And actually, since I'm sitting here looking at the screen, maybe we should do kind of introductions, because there are some names here that I'm not as familiar with. So why don't we go around so we know where we're all coming from. I'll start. I'm Barbara Johnson. I'm at Bedford Public Library in Bedford, Texas, and we are a single site library, and we've been on Koha since 2016, and we are non-EDI. So I'll just go around as I see people. Chanel.
Hi, I'm Chanel. I'm the systems librarian at the Yavapai Library Network in Arizona. We're a consortium of 59 multi-type libraries, and we won't be going live on Koha until mid-June.
Welcome, Chanel.
Thanks.
Jason.
I'm Jason Drop. I'm the Seek and Find coordinator at the Southeast Kansas Library System. We have a consortium of 49 libraries. We've been using Koha since 2008, and we don't really use acquisitions. We use purchase suggestions, but I'm always interested to hear about what's happening in acquisitions.
Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer Wisland from Cedar Park Library in Cedar Park, Texas. We've been using Koha since 2019. We do EDI. We've been doing EDI for maybe about a year, so a little bit newer to EDI.
Welcome. Daphne.
Sorry, you hear me better when I unmute myself. I work with Interleaf Technology in Ireland, and we support lots of libraries using Koha in Ireland and some other European countries. So a lot of them would use acquisitions, and they also use EDI. And I come to this group to hear about new things coming up, or sometimes you come up with great suggestions that I then piggyback on with our clients. It's me.
Kristi with the C.
Hi, I'm Christie, and I am with the Monterey Public Library in California. I'm not sure. I've been in acquisitions, I think, for about 4 years. And so I'm not sure how long we've been using Koha, but since I started, we've been using the acquisitions module. And through this group, it's been wonderful because we switched to EDI ordering and invoicing a few years back. So I was involved in that integral change. So this group has been very helpful. We all help one another and try to troubleshoot, which has been wonderful. We also share our catalog with another library. So that sometimes presents challenges because some changes that we may want to do in the admin area, we need to kind of get that permission or be on the same page as our other libraries. So we're small, but we enjoy Koha. It's been great, and I enjoy working with all of the groups and troubleshooting and helping to make it better.
Chris.
Hi, I'm from the Jackson County Library. Sorry, Anyway, I'm from the Jackson County Library. It's in Southern Oregon, and I found out about the SIGs at KohaCon, and so I wanted to kind of check it out. I'm the ILS admin, so I don't do acquisitions anymore, but it's nice to know about because, you know, we do actually use it and we are on EDI, and that's about all I know about acquisitions here.
Kristi.
I'm Kristi Krueger. I'm the ILS librarian at Cuyahoga County Public Library. We're a 27 branch system just outside of Cleveland. Like Chris Becker, I am not an acquisitions person, but I'm trying to learn as much as I can to help. And we do not use EDI right now, but we do use the acquisitions module quite a bit in Koha.
And V. Escobar, maybe?
Yep, that's right. My name is Victoria Escobar, and I work at the Altadena Public Library. We are a special district with only one branch. And we have been with koha since 2017. And we are mainly EDI, but I also have non-EDI vendors as Amazon or local bookstores.
So some new faces. It's good to know that some people listened to what we talked about at koha-US, so that now they know about SIGs and can come and have discussions. So Rhonda's still not here, so
So Christy, I just wanted to tell you in the chat, I did put the update, which we're on 2211 right now, and that was the one I was referring to, where you could modify the fund on the invoice level.
Ah, great. Thanks. I'll read through that.
excellent. Well, I guess if you're a Bywater customer, our 2305 update will be coming soonish. I know early adopters will be starting in, I think, early December. We've often been an early adopter. We're not going to do it this year because of the kind of the timing, and I have a new cataloger, so I'm training a cataloger, so I'm going to opt out this time, but that means it's just around the corner, sort of. So we might look at some of the new features coming in 2305 if you want to kind of go through those, unless somebody's got a specific topic.
I have a question. Y'all, so we are kind of double doing. We use acquisitions for our book budget. We are also keeping track like on an Excel file. So we're sort of doing double entry. And we can do that, but there's a push to just keep track of all of our book budget in Koha and not use the Excel file. I'm sorry?
Jennifer, your mic seems, at least for me, your mic seems to be cutting out a little bit.
Okay, let me get a little closer here. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, so we are using the acquisitions module, and we have been keeping track of our book budget also in an Excel file for several years, and we are trying to just use Koha acquisitions and not use the Excel file to keep track of our book budget. I'm just curious if anyone else does that. We also, some of our book budget items are not necessarily things we would catalog, so we're coming across, how do we keep track of this in Koha when we don't really need to catalog this item that might just be like a replacement game part or something small that doesn't need to be in.
So I got the first part of that, which I think was, does anybody else track their acquisitions in outside of Koha? We do not. We've got everything in Koha, but others may or may not do that. If anybody else wants to speak to that issue.
We track it as well in Koha. We're a public library, so we do have access, like city finance will send out, monthly reports on where we are in certain funds in our budget. So we can kind of do a comparison at that point, but it's not always up to date on their end. I missed your second part of your question, Jennifer, because it's hard to hear you. You said something about small items.
Right. So, and I hope you can hear me now. Do you catalog all items, even if they, like things that don't need to be cataloged, but you're buying them as maybe a replacement part? Are you still putting them in the Koha just to track the purchasing side?
I don't know if this is an example of what you're talking about, but like we have STEM kits and literacy kits in our library. So they're composed of multiple pieces and parts, sometimes books, sometimes videos, sometimes toys, games, whatever. And we handle those not through our materials budget. We have a separate fund to handle those kinds of things. I don't know. Does anybody else have examples of what Jennifer is talking about?
So we track, Jennifer, everything in our collections development budget. I track in Koha, and that can include tangible items such as books, DVDs, but also subscriptions, ebooks, anything that again goes through our collection development budget. But as Barbara touched on, like if it's materials or supplies, we have a separate budget for that. And I only have collection development, again, allocations in my in our ILS and Koha.
Okay, thank you.
I'm thinking another way though that you could potentially handle something like that is you could make a bib record that is, you know, just like I'll just use the example toys, you know, like children's toys that they might be using or something. And it wouldn't be a record that really specifically describes, you know, what you purchased, but it could be like a catch-all. So you could create kind of a dummy record and then you could pay, you know, against that if you wanted to keep track of something in Koha that way.
Okay, I like the idea of the dummy record.
We use a dummy record for like just our overdrive purchases. I think I've got something for something else, but you know, it's not specific, but we do use it to pay against, and then that keeps all our money, you know, within Koha if it's something that's actually within our materials budget.
Thanks for the feedback, and I'll work on my mic for next time.
I was going to comment on that. We used to use dummy records, and then actually was on the SIG meeting that somebody mentioned that on the vendor side, we could just use a placeholder or just create an invoice from the vendor record. That way we weren't kind of clogging up our system with records that we didn't need, so to speak. So it's been really nice, like for overdrive, just to be able to receive an invoice at the vendor level without utilizing a record that's like suppressed in OPAC. I just want to comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
Christie, we'll look into those options as long as the dummy record too and your options. Thank you.
I find it just nice to have everything, like account for everything that's in my materials budget in one place. That way I'm not having to look between maybe Koha and a spreadsheet, or just gives me confidence that I've got everything accounted for, I guess, you know, in one place. So do you want to look at 2305 enhancements then, maybe?
Makes sense to me. I put the link in there to Bywater's Upgrade Hub in the chat. There are links to their webinars. So their What's New webinars are coming in very early January. And then they have a Q&A session set for Valentine's Day, it looks like. But on that page, there's also, it looks like they've kind of listed out by module there. So.
Let me try to share a screen. Are we looking at the upgrade, Bywater upgrade page? Okay. Well, I know
Yes.
I'm really excited about the first one, the receiving multiple order lines at once, because we are non-EDI. So, and that's a really old bug, and it's now finally going to happen. And we've got number 11844, additional fields for order lines. So you can add fields as free text or as pull down lists that are connected to authorized values. Have to think about how that works and if that's something we would need in our current way we do things. And has anybody got any thoughts about how you might use that?
Are we on aliases or interfaces?
I think either of them, the aliases, well, there was the additional order, this one here, additional fields for order lines. And I'm not sure exactly how we might put that into place, but if somebody's got thoughts about it, and then after that is both the aliases and interface. And I think those are the two topics that were on the Monday minutes this week. I know the aliases was. So I'm just pinch hitting. So anybody that wants to jump in for anything, go right for it.
I think the vendor aliases in particular might be helpful just because Baker and Taylor, it's like, well, when your acquisition staff is searching, are you searching with an ampersand? Are you searching with the word and? So you can just add a few different instances of and nicknames for that vendor so that when they're trying to find it, it's a little easier to search them. Because I think within Baker and Taylor, we have like probably a few different Baker and Taylors. So it helps to any way to search and find those makes a difference. The vendor interfaces, if anyone else has thoughts about how they might use that, that's interesting, but I feel like the people that use those here are bookmarking those pages. But it is sort of kind of, like if you're using Salesforce to keep a whole bunch of different databases organized and have all of your info in one place, then it's helpful in that regard, I think.
Right.
I'm confused about the vendor aliases. So I find that less is more when I'm searching in Koha. So when I need to access a vendor, I'll just put like Brodart or Baker. I won't spell it out, and it brings up that however many accounts we have with that particular vendor. So is this saying that we're adding more names to our vendors?
Sort of. I think just because Koha's searching can be it can sometimes get hung up on punctuation, or if you don't put like a percentage at the end of a search, it might not, a search, it, you know, the search might be a little more limited. So I think it's just giving more options for it to catch the vendor name. But yeah, you are adding more names onto the
kind of keyword searching
Yeah.
sort of. And I think like for us, we're just a single site library. So we mostly use Baker and Taylor. We have Amazon, we have Find a Way. So our stuff is pretty easy to search and locate. But I think if you're a really large library or, you know, large consortium that's using multiple vendors, this might be more helpful in those situations, perhaps.
The example on the bug is American Library Association. So your alias would be ALA. So you could search for them by ALA. So I want this for patrons though. Can I get a patron search that when I search for Robert, I get all the Bobs too? That'd be nice.
Sounds good.
So it sounds like I didn't watch the Monday minutes, I guess. So it sounds like we're actually putting that alias within the particular vendor record, like as an alternate. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Just, I think just extra ways that, you know, it's like, it seems like libraries all do the same thing, but we all really do the same thing, but we do it differently. And so I think just, you know, it's more and more ways to help us handle the different workflows we have.
Yeah.
So let's see, and then they list new enhancements. So we have add option to search in archived suggestions to all search tabs. That's a checkbox, include archived to all the search filter tabs for suggestions. All right. Could be useful.
But
Next, we have link basket group name from basket summary page. We don't use basket groups. Do any of you use groups? And if you do, how are you using them? Sounds like nobody's using groups. Well, hopefully that will be helpful to the people that do. And then we have revert suggestion status to accepted when orders made from a suggestion are canceled. Okay, that could be helpful. Let's change the status from ordered back to accepted. Okay.
Wouldn't that create confusion? We don't order directly from our suggestion module. We'll create carts with our vendors. But I'm wondering if people are trying to like look back and think like, oh, did we order this book from a suggestion and it says accepted, and then it was actually canceled, that's not correct data? Does that make sense?
It's 33098.
I'm not sure how this page is organized, so I'm going to see if there's, I think it's just this section. are some Monday minutes, which was the one receiving multiple orders and acquisitions. That I'm excited to try when we get that feature.
Robert, we couldn't hear you.
Just that this is the link for the Monday minutes here. That may be the one they did yesterday.
Is it,
Go ahead.
so reading that bug, it looks like all it does is if the order is canceled, it changes the status back to accepted and not ordered.
That previous
Yeah,
revert suggestion.
yeah.
Do any of you order suggestions directly within the suggestions module? I'm not even sure. We don't do it that way, so I'm having to think how that even works.
In the bug, it was saying you add an order to a basket from an accepted suggestion. So that's new purchase suggestion. Market is accepted. Find or create a basket. Add an order to the basket from a suggestion.
The thing that confuses me about this is, you've already ordered the item, so we've done that before where we've gone into purchase suggestions and we've ordered the item, for the patron who suggested the purchase, and they've gone ahead and canceled their hold. They're not interested in the book anymore. But again, our item's already on order, because it's in the basket and we've sent it through EDI. So the fact that I'm confused on this, it's saying it's just going to go to accepted is not as ordered anymore if they cancel it. But I don't understand how that helps you if you've already ordered it. I guess that's my confusion.
I guess you could try ordering it from a different vendor. So your one vendor cancels it, you can't get it from them, so it goes back to accepted, and now you can use a different vendor to try and obtain the item perhaps.
Yeah, I think on this bug, they're talking about when the vendor cancels the order, not when the patron cancels their suggestion.
Oh, got it. Thank you for clarifying. I was like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Okay, the vendor is canceling the order. Thank you.
So not an awful lot coming in the next upgrade, but some good things. I'm going to stop sharing that. We've still got like a little over 15 minutes if we have other issues we want to bring up and talk about. I just came from another meeting and figured I'd be late to this one and didn't know I'd be hitting this. So I'm like, So are there things that you can tell I don't like silence? So are there things about acquisitions that you think if it would only do this, fill in the blank, or, you know, this is an extra step I have to take every single time. Why do I have to do it? You know, why do I have to do this extra thing? Anything that comes up when you think about your daily processes of how acquisitions could be better?
I would like to note that since we moved to EDI, it is much more convenient. But what can be challenging, at least on my end, is the invoice receipt via EDI. Oftentimes, not oftentimes, more often than I'd like, I'll receive orders from vendors and we receive them as in processing so I can check everything and then I'll check them in, you know, to be available, and I'll notice that, oh no, the EDI invoice didn't come in for whatever reason. Or I'll notice like an error, like we're dealing with Midwest tape and for some reason it changed and there was something in our shipping area that wasn't supposed to be there. So then I have to go back and manually fix those. So I guess it would be really nice on my end. I feel like there's less checks and balances now that I'm receiving invoices via EDI, because when you have the invoice in hand and you're receiving each one, it's like, you know, you're checking everything off. Like, okay, here's the price and I have the item in hand. But I think with the convenience of the EDI receipt invoicing, you're just like, there's no checks and balances, so to speak. And if anyone has anything that they'd like to offer, I would be open to that, because again, I'll have to go, all of a sudden I'll notice like, oh wow, the invoice didn't come in. I have to go back to the vendor, but it's not obvious to me when I'm receiving the item, like, oh, the invoice didn't come in. So I don't know if there's a fix for that.
I don't know either, but that is interesting about the feeling of kind of the checks and balances to, you know, to just be sure that, you know, you've received what you're supposed to and paying, you know, paying what you're supposed to and everything has taken place. I think Rhonda's talked about some different reports they run. So maybe that's a good topic to bring up the next time she's here, because she may have some insight into making that feel like a more, you know, a more definite procedure on the feeling of the checks and balances.
Okay, thank you.
She's our expert, so. I guess I will bring up a non-koha topic. Just in general, how far in advance do you all order materials? Like, I'm trying to encourage our selectors to do 3 to 4 months in advance when possible. But I find that sometimes they're, you know, waiting to put stuff in their carts, and it'll be just, you know, if they're in November, you know, they're ordering their December, and I would like them to be doing it a little further out, planning a little bit further down the line. What are your procedures, and just how do you handle that kind of general acquisitions thing?
Is there sort of like a, oh, sorry, there's Jennifer.
You can go ahead, Christie.
I was just gonna say, I mean, if there's a cutoff, like you can't order them earlier than a certain amount of time, wouldn't you want to order as soon as possible so you could get like a bid record up to start gathering holds?
Well, that's what I think. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that, to me, it's important to order early, to get it out there, to give the public confidence that you're on the ball, you're ordering the things that are getting talked about and promoted, and to allow holds to start building. Sometimes the holds let you see how popular something is, and you all of a sudden, before the first one even comes in, you start to see, I'm going to need more copies of that.
Right, you can
So,
check the ratio report.
yeah. And so we've always kind of had a let's order 3 to 4 months ahead of time as our base. And I didn't know if that's kind of what people are doing, and also just our internal issue of trying to sometimes push some of our selectors. You need to be ordering, much sooner, not just a month out, which is sometimes what I'm seeing.
At a past library, we went up to 6 months because for all of the reasons that both you, Barbara, and Christie have mentioned, to get that holds list going so that the record was in the catalog, because we would continually get requests for, certain items, because at the library, people were on the ball with knowing when things were coming out, right? Like they would read it and they're like, oh, this is coming out like, in 7 or 8 months. So if it was past the 6 months, we would have them kind of say, okay, well, that's a little bit, too far. So we're gonna, can you please request that again, if it's within 6 months, but we usually went 6.
I know from the vendor standpoint, just in speaking with our vendors, because we're a smaller library, that the sooner you place the order, then the more likely you'll receive it by laydown date. I know that's harder after the pandemic because it doesn't seem like we're getting DVDs before laydown date, but I'm not getting our books by laydown date, and that could be because we're outsourcing our CNP now. Is anyone else getting books before their laydown date after the pandemic?
We are. We have partial processing done by the vendor. And for a while there, we weren't getting anything, beforehand, but we're getting a fair number of materials before now. So. And then Jennifer says for adults, we order about 1 to 2 months out and less for juvenile. And I guess that goes along with like we have an ordering schedule and we have everybody orders something each week. We have that all laid out. Do you have percentages that, like, say by December, how much of your budget, what percent of your budget do you want to have, ordered and or encumbered? Do you have, do you have that laid out? And if you do, what are you telling your selectors? Like, you need to order, 50%, have 50% of your budget spent by December, because December orders should cover, like, December, January, February, March, April, May, if you're doing 6 months, that kind of thing.
That starts to get into the, if I would be making things up. I don't know enough yet.
Fair enough.
So I know there's the planning section in the budget module under each fund. we don't use it. It's just kind of I'll warn selectors like, okay, we should have, 30% by this date. But that is an option for us, to set out that planning. I don't know if is anyone using that?
We have not used it because it just didn't seem really worth it or powerful enough, or it seemed like basically it would take your number and just split it up into 12 months. That's my recollection anyway. Basically, I'm just thinking about kind of tightening it up, or I don't even know if it's tightening it up, but making a plan that we're going to have even more ordered and encumbered earlier in our year than we traditionally have. Because another thing that happens is with the youth staff, once they get into summer reading club, it's kind of hard to always have them hit their ordering dates that they need to have parts in, because they become so busy with summer reading club and programming and whatnot. And so thinking to try and get some of their ordering done even sooner in the year is another thing we've been discussing.
I guess I'd be curious to know why people are holding back. Is it just a time thing, or?
Yeah, I think part of it is a time thing. It's something to investigate more, definitely, and to put even more guidelines in place. Plus, some of our staff are a little newer, so it's some things we need to emphasize. And before we start emphasizing guidelines again, we're talking about what do we want the guidelines to be.
And before the pandemic, we had a more robust staff, and we were also on the standing order plan, so that helped relieve people of the time involved. We'd pick the popular authors for adult fiction or some of our series for juvenile fiction, and they'd automatically be coming in on standing orders. So the selectors didn't have to go investigate, like, oh, what are the new titles coming out by these authors, and start putting them in the carts. So I think that helped a lot. Now it just relies on the selector, and again, like Barbara said, their time involved, and okay, what's coming out in 6 months, and you have to just be on top of it and look at the lists that your vendor provides.
We have 2 minutes left. Any final thoughts or comments from anyone before we close for this month? I'm going to take that as a no. So we made it all the way through somehow. I'm not sure how, but so it looks like the next meeting would be December 19th. And hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for filling in, Barbara.
Thanks for recording, Jason.
No problem. See ya.